Rain lashed against the windows of the opulent Blackwood Manor, mirroring the storm brewing inside Detective Inspector Davies. He surveyed the scene. Lord Blackwood, a renowned historian, lay sprawled on the Persian rug, a priceless antique dagger protruding from his chest. Around him stood the prime suspects, his estranged wife, Lady Beatrice, his ambitious nephew, Charles, and his quiet, observant secretary, Miss Eleanor Vance. "A locked room," Constable Miller muttered, scratching his head. "No sign of forced entry, sir." Davies knelt beside the body, his keen eyes scanning the room. The only other objects of note were 3 antique coffins, each ornately carved and positioned around the room like macabre sentinels. "3 coffins," he murmured, a frown creasing his brow. "This is unusual." Lady Beatrice, her face a mask of grief, dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. He was a difficult man, Inspector. But I never wished him dead." Charles, ever the picture of composure, stepped forward. "A tragedy, of course. Uncle was passionate about his collection. Perhaps an accident?" Miss Vance, her spectacles slightly askew, remained silent, her gaze fixed on the coffins. Davies wasn't buying any of it. "An accident with a dagger? I think not." "Miss Vance, you were closest to Lord Blackwood. Tell me, did he mention anything unusual lately?" Miss Vance hesitated. "He was researching a particularly rare artifact. A Coptic burial shroud. He believed it held a clue to an ancient mystery." "And these coffins?" Davies gestured towards the ornate boxes. "Part of his collection. He acquired them recently. He was fascinated by them, though he never explained why." Davies examined the coffins more closely. First was made of dark oak, intricately carved with scenes of Egyptian hieroglyphs. The second, a gleaming mahogany, displayed symbols of the Roman Empire. The third, crafted from a light-colored wood, was adorned with Celtic knotwork. "Miller," Davies said, "have these coffins examined. Check for any hidden compartments, anything unusual." Miller nodded and set to work. Davies returned to the body, his mind racing. The locked room, the 3 coffins, the ancient shroud, it all felt connected. But how? Hours passed. The storm raged on, and the tension in the room thickened. Miller returned, his face grim. "Sir, the first 2 coffins are empty. But the third—" He paused, swallowing hard. "The third coffin contains another body." A gasp filled the room. Davies rushed to the third coffin, the Celtic one. Inside, nestled amongst layers of silk, lay a woman's skeleton, adorned with a silver necklace. An ancient burial, Davies surmised. But why was it hidden here? Miss Vance spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "The shroud. Lord Blackwood believed it was the key to finding the lost tomb of a Celtic queen. He thought the queen's burial chamber was hidden within one of these coffins. But there are 3 coffins," Charles pointed out. Davies' eyes fell on the first coffin, the dark oak one. He remembered the Egyptian hieroglyphs. "The hieroglyphs," he muttered. "They might not be Egyptian. They could be a code." He examined the carvings closely, recognizing a pattern. He pulled out his notepad and began to sketch the symbols, comparing them to ancient Celtic runes. A slow smile spread across his face. "The hieroglyphs are a map," he announced. "A map to the real tomb." He explained his theory. The hieroglyphs, when deciphered, pointed to a location not far from Blackwood Manor. The Queen's tomb, he believed, was not within the coffins, but nearby, hidden beneath an ancient standing stone. But "What about Lord Blackwood's murder?" Lady Beatrice asked, her voice trembling. Davies turned to face the group. The killer knew about the shroud and the Queen's tomb. They believed Lord Blackwood had found the location, and they killed him to steal it. He looked at each of them in turn. "The question is, who?" He paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. Then his gaze settled on Miss Vance. "Miss Vance," he said, "you were the quiet observer. You knew about the shroud, the coffins, everything. You were also the one who mentioned the Celtic Queen. You led us to the answer." Miss Vance's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face. I loved him," she confessed. "But he was obsessed with the tomb, with the treasure. He was going to leave me nothing. I couldn't let him." She had found the map, deciphered the code, and killed Lord Blackwood to claim the treasure for herself. The storm outside finally began to subside. As Davies apprehended Miss Vance, the mystery of the three coffins finally solved. The rain stopped, and a sliver of moonlight peeked through the clouds, illuminating the dark secrets that Blackwood Manor had held.